Hey, sexy, and welcome to 50 Shades of Grays, the podcast where we unpack sex, relationships, and emotional chaos, all through the lens of my all-time favorite show, Grey's Anatomy. I'm your host, Crystal Rose Napolitano. I'm a certified sexologist, lifelong performer, and I'm a full-time Grey's superfan. This podcast is the love child between two of my biggest passions: deep diving and breaking down the psychology of TV characters, and giving people really easy tips and tricks to live an orgasmic life. Each episode, I break down the relational and sexual dynamics of the characters in Grey's. I teach you about what's harmful, what's hot, and what I might do if these characters were my clients. This is not a recap podcast, it's a relationship autopsy. So, unclench your jaw, roll your shoulders back, and get ready, because it's a beautiful day to save sex lives. Hello, and welcome to the intro episode of 50 Shades of Grays. I am so thrilled to finally be starting this project. It's truly a labor of love. I am such a huge fan of the show Grey's Anatomy, and all I want to do is talk about it. And so I said, okay, I need to start a podcast about this incredible show. So I am your host, Crystal Rose Napolitano. I am a sexologist, relationship coach. I have been a performer my entire life. I've done comedy, dance, theater, musical theater. And I love being in front of people. I love a performance. I love talking. I love TV. I love all of it. So I'm really excited about this. And I'm really excited to bring kind of like relationship knowledge to you, the listener, through the medium of TV. And it's going to be such a fun journey. We're going to kind of go through every episode and talk about what's working, what's not working. And I'll give the characters kind of a session. And I hope you learn a lot about relationships through the process. Let's dive in. And I want to tell you why I started this podcast and what to expect a little bit more in depth. So I wanted to start this podcast because every episode of Grey's Anatomy, and there are 22 seasons now, so there is no shortage of content, but every episode of Grey's Anatomy, I felt so incredibly just kind of broken open by different things that were being shown in the episodes, which obviously we're going to talk about with each episode that we unpack here together. But it showed me love and relationships in a way I never really experienced before. I was absolutely thrilled to see like healthy homosexual relationships on screen, and healthy choices in relationships, and then not healthy choices in relationships that were kind of like rewritten, and the characters heal and repair and move on, and there's healthy masculinity and male relationships that lift each other up, and there are people of color in incredible positions of power. And it's like, I realized in watching this show, oh my gosh, like so much of the media I grew up with was so whitewashed and straightwashed. It was incredible to see it laid out so beautifully in this show. So my story, as a sexologist, this is not at all what I had set out to do when I was young. I actually grew up in a very sex negative environment. I grew up in a very conservative Christian environment. I even had a purity ring placed on my finger when I was really, really young. And it really shaped a lot of the ways that I view sex and relationships. There was only one type of relationship that was good, and that was straight. And you had to do it this way and no other way. And as I grew up and went to public high school and started, experiencing the world in a new way, those beliefs really shed from who I am because they weren't mine. They were just handed to me. And as I grew up and learned, like, this is actually what I believe. I believe people should live a life of pleasure. I believe people should be able to love whoever they want. And discovered, slowly that I am queer, and all of these parts of me that were suppressed kind of like started to kind of blossom in such a beautiful way. And here I am, a sexologist, and I really love the kind of full circle story of that, moving from this really repressed Christian girl who was being forced to be straight and only have this type of relationship where the man is the head of the house. And here I am, the CEO of my own company. I live in France. I moved here because I love it. And I have lived here a few times. This time is permanent. And I've just made a lot of decisions in my life that I wasn't put on the path to make. We can say that way. And now I'm really passionate about talking about sex in a really shame-free way, because I think there are two things in the world we're supposed to be really good at but never talk about, and it's sex and money. Well, I'm not a financial coach, but I am a relationship coach, and I want to talk about sex, and I want to talk about relationships, and I want to talk about it in a way that is just really open. And we don't have to be ashamed of saying things and, asking questions and not knowing things and learning kind of later in life. And so that is another reason I started this podcast, because I want people to be able to have a space to say, like, okay, I can go listen to 50 Shades of Grey, and Crystal isn't afraid to say these things. And Crystal can just like open it up for all of us to talk about. And, who knows, I might invite you as a guest onto this podcast and we can talk about these things together. But I want this to be a really shame-free, sex positive space so we can learn together, heal together, open up more things together, and really learn like why it's important to release all of this old shame that was handed to us, whether by religion or heteronormativity or maybe just a conservative environment. But it's really important to just be open, because how will we know what is healthy if we're not all just talking about it? If we're not all saying, hey, this is happening in my relationship. Is this okay? Is this normal? Right? So it really like keeps us all safe to talk about stuff in this way. And that is one of my missions with this show. And with that, I'll be bringing in my sexology work. I'll be bringing in my lifelong performer work. And we'll just be unpacking the show together. I really want for you to not only get like this shame-free, sex-positive environment, but I want you to be able to take away at least one tip per episode that you can bring home and use in your relationship immediately. I want it to be really accessible. And this might be something like, oh, I'm going to take a breath before I make a decision about my relationship. Even that can change so many things. And I'm really passionate about people having this work. And I want to make sure that everyone listening knows, like, I didn't get to this place where I am able to communicate why this is valuable and my journey, going from so like repressed Christian girl to embodied sexologist. I didn't get there the easy way. I want people to know I had to go through deconstructing and figuring out and all of that to get to where I am now. And I want you to know that that journey is absolutely okay for you too. And I'm here to help you along the way. So let's learn together. I mean, we all have learning and unlearning to do as we go through life, and I'm not done. And let's do it together through this podcast, through the beautiful creation of Grey's Anatomy. And even if you're not a Grey's fan, I think you'll gain so much from this podcast, because you'll be able to hear, and if you're interested, to go watch the episode, but you'll be able to see in real life, like, okay, this is what the relationship dynamic she's talking about, and this is what it can look like, and this is how we can evolve. And I think it's going to be so much fun. And why I think Grey's Anatomy is like the perfect show to do this work with, it's because the show is really a cultural mirror. So they've done such a good job of like taking what's going on in the world and saying, we're going to make an episode about this dynamic right now. I'm very current. I think I have 2 episodes to catch up on as of this taping. But as the show develops, I find it to be more and more and more relevant, more poignant. And it feels like the episodes are being created by going on social media, finding a topic that is really important that we're all talking about, and then going, we're going to make an episode about this. We're going to talk about it, and it's going to be in your face. And we're just going to do it this way so that like our viewers start talking about these things. And some of these episodes are so beautifully written and performed. And the subject matter are these like hotly debated topics between political parties, between different groups of faith. And we see it in the episode presented in such a human way that I think it's really important to unpack that. Because what I also bring into my work is like politics influence relationships, gender dynamics influence relationships, racial dynamics influence relationships. And we don't talk about it enough. Like social conditioning influences relationships. Your relationship doesn't exist in a vacuum. We all have these influences that come to us from this society that we're being, raised in. We're living in this society. And there are influences coming all the time. And just your identity alone is going to kind of indicate how you show up in your relationship. And so it's important that we notice, okay, like economics, like does your partner make more than you? All of this influences our connection to each other. And in Grey's Anatomy, it's really well talked about and shown and performed. And so I'm going to be bringing in those dynamics into this podcast. And we're going to say like, okay, this character is a person of color and this character is white. What does this mean? Right? How does this align their desires? How does this put together their relationship and their intimacy? And it's really like, part of my activism to do this as well, because we need to really name what's going on. Okay, now let's get into some fun facts about the show. And this is the stuff I so geek out on and I love it. Okay, so the name of the show, Grey's Anatomy, is actually a play on words. There is a book that was created in the year 1858 by Henry Grey, and he was an anatomist. And the book was named Grey's Anatomy, but it's spelled Gray because that's how his last name was spelled. Meredith Grey, the star of Grey's Anatomy, her last name is spelled Grey. So that's why it's called Grey's Anatomy, this play on words of this book that's considered like the anatomy Bible in the medical world. Grey's Anatomy is now the longest running primetime medical drama in TV history. At the time of this recording, there are over 450 episodes. So I'm recording this on February 17th, 2026, and we'll see how many episodes we get to have in our lifetime. The show has also been nominated for 39 Emmys and has won 5. The show has a record number of episodes for a LGBTQIA plus character to run in a show. This is the character of Callie Torres, who was in 239 episodes. And one of the coolest Grey's fun facts that I think exists is that every single episode is named after a song, except for one. And the one episode that isn't named after a song is an episode where there is an issue of domestic violence. I'm not going to give anything away, but the name of the episode is actually the U.S. Domestic Violence Hotline, which I think is a really powerful choice. So now that we have kind of like an orientation of the show, an orientation of the podcast, moving forward, you can expect some episodes to just be me. I will have guests on some episodes. As we go through the episodes, we'll do a breakdown of characters. We will do a breakdown of scenarios, but I want to name, this will not be a criticism of the writing. I want to name that this is just a dissection of character dynamics, and that if every character on Grey's Anatomy was perfectly healthy, perfectly securely attached, perfectly everything, it would probably make for really boring TV. So again, this is not a criticism of the writing or of any performances, but if we made choices like these characters did, what might we expect from our relationships? And I might say, this is not a great choice to make, but that is like the character's choice within their relationship. So I am so excited to dissect this show through this lens with you. I am so excited to hear if you are falling in love with Grey's Anatomy because of this show, if you're already a lifelong fan of Grey's Anatomy, and now you get to see it through this new lens. Like, I want to hear it all. Please don't hesitate to send me a message. I am on social media at The Honest Sexologist. You can find me there, send me a DM. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to 50 Shades of Greys. You can find me on Substack and all social media platforms at The Honest Sexologist. Don't forget to grab my free couples connection guide to help you start reconnecting to your partner tonight in less than 10 minutes. Be gentle with yourself, honor your desires, and remember, chemistry is not the same thing as connection. Until next time, I love you, you messy human.